Hello and welcome back to Aada Pulse, the community-funded news channel bringing you up to date with everything Cardano. And because we are community-funded, there is no coin chilling, there is no paid promotion. We don't even discuss token price. We are just here to disseminate information. On this episode of Exploring Cardano, I talked to Lucas, one of the team members behind Aada, the decentralized lending and borrowing platform that uses an innovative approach with their DeFi NFT bonds. More on that coming up. So I've been wanting to ask, how do you pronounce it? Is it just Aada?
No, actually, we prefer it to be called Aada. It's how it was initially started to be, and it's not double Ada. It's not just Ada. As we prefer, it's Ada. Yeah.
Aada. Where did you come up for with that name?
Actually, it's a combination of letters for four core members. It's like our surnames. It's like double Andrushkas, Dargis, and me Armanos. It's our surnames. It equals to the Aada for three A's, one D.
Great. Well, that's pretty lucky. It also fits into the ecosystem that you guys are in. So, can you give me a sort of a quick overview of the project, and then we'll sort of dive into the certain aspects a bit deeper.
Okay, sure. So we are Aada, as I told, and we are currently peer-to-peer lending protocol where users are able to create custom loans. Like I can set, as a borrower, I can set up all the loan parameters, and as a lender, I can also provide the liquidity in my own terms. Obviously, if the loan terms are inadequate, if I put the inadequate loan terms, nobody gonna take the loan. So it's in the best interest to put the best terms you can actually take the loan, and in the best terms the most beneficial terms for the borrower.
Mm-hmm.
We just allowed users to have full responsibility for all the loan parameters. The only censorship we are doing is that's which of the tokens we are allowed to use on the platform.
Right. And how do you sort of check which tokens are allowed on? How do you vet the different tokens? What goes into that process?
It's actually our community's best interest to have all the tokens in our platform. So we do this through governance proposals. We allow users to use Aada token to participate in the governance process. The community itself writes the proposals. Currently, there are, I think, 3 or 4 active proposals, and on the next epoch, we are going to do the snapshot of the Aada token, and on the next epoch, we are going to do an actual on-chain voting where hopefully we are going to integrate the JET token that was launched recently, yesterday.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, so I mean that's quite interesting. A lot of projects are sort of moving towards their governance phase, and so you've really sort of got a head start on that, and also giving utility to your token. So the way your lending actually works, you've come up with something called an NFT bond, which is sort of if I'm right in saying it's the proof of the loan. Can you talk a bit more about how those sort of bonds work?
Yeah, I like how you mentioned that NFT bond is a proof of loan. So first, what I would like to tell is that NFT bond is issued every time when the user takes the liquidity or create liquidity request from an app. So basically, all the time user interacts with our platform, he receives NFT bond in return. NFT bond is transferable. It's not attached to my wallet. And with having this in mind, it opens up a whole new market. It's a loan market. Like when I try to explain it for my friends and for the users, the great example is, for example, I borrowed Aada for a year, but I desperately needed in in that Aada in a month. So there is no way I can get back my Aada, only when the borrower returns it. So being able to sell the loan, sell the NFT bond, I can get amount at least close to my loan by selling the loan. Security-wise, as long as I have the possession of the NFT bond, which always sits in my wallet, so if it's in my wallet, it's in my possession. And if I have meet the requirements of the loan, like for example, I have to return X amount of Aada, so then I can get back the collateral. So it's like a key, which only accepts if I meet all the requirements. So it's this kind of security and this kind of the usability in this new NFT bond.
Mm-hmm. So these sort of these loans actually aren't linked to accounts; they're simply just in the bonds that are completely transferable. And does that give a sort of an extra sort of level of security then to the protocol?
I mean, the protocol is secured by the smart contracts, obviously, and this NFT bond, it's like an extra layer of security. So it's double protection. Not only the smart contracts that has been audited a while ago, and we have been having the bug bounty running since then, and no critical errors have occurred. So I think the users of Aada should be quite secured. Not quite, definitely secured.
Definitely, yeah, that's what we like to hear. So it actually opens up sort of a secondary market for bond buyers in a way where they can come in and buy a bond and actually sort of lock up their Aada in a bit, but also receive a much greater amount of Aada in the future. What does this bond market sort of look like? What's the volume of people that are actually choosing to sell on their bonds?
Currently, we are not pushing the NFT bond marketplace very much because we haven't built the market ourselves. We are using third-party the NFT marketplace that are up and running on the Cardano blockchain fully and securely. For us to have a more liquid NFT marketplace, I believe that we should do some more education, some more use cases, and the biggest issue that we have been facing is the greed of all the people, because the people want to have the very high APRs. If they want to sell NFT bonds, they are selling for very high and not inadequate price. So I believe that we need to step up in the educational layer of Aada app.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. I think it's also with DeFi being fairly new to Cardano, people are still trying to get their heads around it, and sort of NFT bonds and loans is sort of mimicking the way the real financial worlds work, and it does take quite a bit of research and education to get up to speed on it. Can we go over sort of some of the use cases? So I mean, well, lending the use cases for lending is pretty simple. You lend a token and you get an APR on that. Why would someone borrow?
That's a very great question. Yeah, lending is simple. You lend and you earn. For borrowing, there are quite specific and, in my opinion, not very difficult if you know how to explain it. So most used use case for our community borrowers is shorting the token. When the borrower takes the loan, let's say of token A, with the intention that the token A is going to decrease in price. So he takes the loan and sells the loan immediately. Like I'm taking token A 100 amount and I sell it for 100 Aada, and the token price of token A goes down. So after a month or after some time, I rebuy the same token for the lower price, and I can keep the difference of Aada for myself. And I return the loan, I get back the collateral, and I have the surplus of Aada for myself. There are other use cases, like, for example, other way around of shorting is holding a long position which in my opinion is very strong asset in the current and growing Cardano ecosystem, because the tension is that all the token prices are at one point is going to go up, so that helps to earn more ADA, and there also you can borrow the token to provide liquidity and avoid impermanent loss. That's really powerful tool for providing liquidity in DEXs and the DEXs are the most used cases on the Cardano blockchain right now. And yeah, you can also leverage all of your position. You can leverage shorting, you can leverage longing, and you can leverage the liquidity providing position.
Yeah, could you give a bit? So I think leveraging is something that caught my eye. It's quite valuable in the financial world, and also for traders. People are quite used to leverage on an exchange where you have a sort of a set amount in your account, and then you're given a sort of an X figure on that, whether that 5, 10, 20X, and then whenever your sort of position decreases in value compared to the amount that you hold, you get liquidated. How does leveraging work when you actually have to put up a larger amount of collateral than the loan itself? How does leverage work in that case?
Okay, that's a good and interesting question, though. So the leverage is a little bit more difficult in this way when you have to have over collateralized loans, because the leg of leverage is getting smaller and smaller every time you try to leverage, and it's all primitive. Like, it's very basic, and it's doable, it's possible, it's used, but it's not that advanced like in the sexes on all the exchanges that have that huge leverage currently running. It's really primitive, like our app in general, but it does the job done, and yeah, it's quite in works. And quite
what's sort of the level of leverage, if you were to put a sort of a rough figure on it, that you could achieve with a reasonable loan?
You can easily do 3-4x of leverage, and do not feel like you can feel the leverage in this way. It also depends of how big your loan is. Like, if it's 100 ADA, it's hard to leverage it for many times. If it's 100,000 ADA, you can leverage it more time, and you can feel it actually. So it depends of the amount of the loan.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. So another part of the protocol is liquidations. Could you run through the sort of the cases of liquidations and how liquidations work on the platform?
So there are two cases when the liquidations can occur. One is quite simple, when the borrower fails to repay the loan in the designated time. So if the borrower doesn't return the loan after a month, he was supposed to return it after a month, I can liquidate and take all the collateral that he set up for myself. The second case is a little bit more difficult, is when the health factor, we have the health factor in our app, when the health factor falls below 1.0, the health factor helps to indicate the over collateralization rate. For example, like collateral is 200 ADA and the loan is 150 ADA. So in rough estimates, it's like 1.5 health factor. If health factor falls below 1.0, we liquidate the loans using the ADA on-build oracle. That oracle is very interesting. Like, there are 9 running nodes, and out of those 9, 4, the Aada has a possession for 4 of them, and for every liquidation to happen, there are supposed to be 5 witnesses. So 4 witnesses could be Aada, and 1 witness should be any stake pool operator that are within those 9 running nodes. So there are some quite famous names in those node runners, like Blade Pool for Conrad. He is one of the biggest ICO runners. He's actively helps us to proceed with works of the Oracle that we are doing. And yeah, that's more interesting and more difficult way of liquidation that we can have currently have. Yeah.
So yeah, let's just sort of dive in a little bit more because I think it is actually quite interesting. How exactly does that liquidation work? Does it liquidate the entire position and then sort of divvy up the sort of the funds? How exactly would that work? Sort of from a sort of a step-by-step process if it falls if the sort of the collateral value falls below the sort of the one health level.
So let's take that I am the lender and I want to liquidate the loan. So I basically go to the app. It's not automated, so I have to do everything by manually. So I go to the Aada app. I go to my dashboard, and there are when the health factor is below 1, it allows to liquidate the loan. The button appears of liquidations, and I press liquidate. I try to sign the transaction, and the transaction while the oracles check the price, if it's actually below 1.0, then it allows me to sign the transaction. If that in time when I want to sign the transaction, the price of the token goes up and the health factor is not below 1.0, it doesn't allow me to sign the transaction. So it happens really fast, and because it's on the blockchain and it doesn't require any human to do any checking, so that's why it's very fast and it's very accurate. The prices that we are getting from are from the main dexes and from the main dexes. So it's very accurate, I would say that.
Mm-hmm. So basically, it's up to the lender to constantly keep an eye on the sort of the collateral positions of his loans. Does that mean so he can only liquidate a loan if they go under 1.0? Does that mean if that does happen, and sort of he misses it and it goes down to 0.95 and he liquidates it at that point, that there can actually be a loss for the lender?
It depends of the collateral. If the collateral is Aada, I think, I'm not sure, I have to check, but I think the liquidation threshold is 1.3. There are very deeply written all this information in our Gitbook, and I'm just I don't really remember it constantly, but I think when the Aada is 1.3 and when the collateral is different token, for example, Wing Riders token, the liquidation threshold is 2.0. So it's a lot bigger than just the Aada. And if the health factor falls below 1, yes, if the price of the collateral decreases very, very fast, and I think it's not supposed to be 0.95, if you should receive the loss, I think it has to be 0.7, 0.6, which is very hard to achieve and very rare in situations like you don't see the token prices collapses that fast. But it can happen. It can obviously happen, and
so there is quite a bit of protection there for the lender, which is nice to see. So I mean, we've been in this so-called bear market for quite a while now, with quite a lot of FUD and a lot of large companies going bankrupt. What's it like building a DeFi project on a fairly new and upcoming chain that is Cardano? What's it like building in the bear market?
Okay, we are not a big team, first of all. And the same team has been since the very start. Our names is here, so we have to stick around for a long time. And all the smart contract developers, we always want to be bigger, but it's very hard to find the right fit for our team, because we are based in Eastern Europe, and there are not many on-site developers, not many of them, and it's very hard to find the right fit for a team. The first criteria for the person to join our team is to be very passionate about the DeFi and the Cardano ecosystem in general and the blockchain. if we should talk about funds, we've been handling pretty well. We had just two funding processes. It was the private and public sales of Aada, and since then we've been handling funds pretty well. So we are now in danger at the funding side of the project.
Sure. I think it's. I think a lot of the projects are finding it difficult to hire talent, especially in the Cardano space, just because of the lack of people and developers who actually know how to build on Cardano at the moment. But hopefully that's going to increase and get easier over time. So the UK government has just come out today announcing sort of robust regulatory measure that they will be taking and over DeFi and crypto, and many other jurisdictions are moving into sort of putting more regulatory pressure. What are your thoughts on the regulatory landscape for DeFi, and how is this going to affect Aada?
One word, uncertainty, I think fits here pretty well, because the regulatory is not quite settled, and they like to make changes behind closed doors, not asking the opinion of the actual builders and the people that are really involved with the ecosystem. So we don't know. We are like chameleons. We like to adapt, and Aada project going to adapt in a way they need to. Like, if they make some changes, we will adapt, and that's, I think, the way we should go to. And talking about my opinion towards the future of that, I'm not sure. I hope it's gonna get an easy pass for to have at least regulatory, because if it's gonna be regulated, it's gonna become like current traditional financing system. And the beauty of a DeFi is that it's mine. It's not my friends. It's not my yours. Not my neighbors, and not yours. It's the funds that I have. They are mine. The things I can do with my funds is only my responsibility. And if I lose them, then yeah, it's my own responsibility. Then it's my fault. But that's the beauty of the DeFi, and I don't want traditional finance to get in the way of that. Is that I'm responsible for everything I do. That's the beauty.
Yeah, sure. And I guess sort of the other big benefit of DeFi is the no KYC, the no reporting sort of requirements. It just makes it much easier to sort of use the platform. There are the downsides of it with sort of illegal activity, but I actually think, and a lot of people have shown with stats, that it's still quite a small amount of the process on crypto. So with Jed launching yesterday, what effect do you think this is going to have on DeFi in Cardano? Do you think we're sort of going for a DeFi summer this year?
I think Jed launch was a very, very huge step that people been waiting for a long time. We can see the reservoirs filling quite rapidly, and I think they currently have around 10 million Aada TVL, which is a lot in a day. So I see that people are excited, and people been waiting for that, and people just been looking around the corner to the Cardano and just been waiting for a huge steps to be made. So I'm quite positive of what's next in the Cardano ecosystem, and I'm really happy that we are also building on the Cardano ecosystems, because of the community. It's been engaging, and it's been very interesting. And the example of Jed launching yesterday with huge numbers of activity shows that we are in the right path to the full DeFi ecosystem on Cardano.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it'll also be very interesting in the terms of loans and using sort of stable assets with Aada and other native assets to create different strategies, and I think we'll see a lot more of that in the future. So, lastly, what's the most interesting thing, obviously apart from Aada, that you find going on in Cardano?
It's a quite interesting question. I think there is no brainer answer that Jet launched yesterday is something that's really interesting on Cardano today. But what's interesting on Cardano not today but every day is the community and how they interactive are on all the social medias, how involved they want to be around this blockchain. I think that's something that's really interesting for not for the certain projects but for entire ecosystem, and that's what I love about Cardano.
Great, yeah, I think that's exactly the same for me. The community is something that sort of brought me here and is keeping me here and sort of gives me enthusiasm every day when I see the sort of the positivity on Twitter compared to a lot of other projects. So yeah, thanks for talking to me today.